What other lead types have you worked and why do you feel like, or do you feel like vets have been like your most successful? I guess tell us a little bit about the different lead types that you worked and kind of maybe the pros and cons to them.
So the first, start off on IULs
Hmm.
and was pretty much working those. So like when I got into the industry back in February, up until I'd say almost August, I was 80% IULs. I'd mix in like the first fresh pack I bought that was final expense, but pretty much I was just running all IULs and was doing pretty well off them. But I after that I made the switch over to more final expense and right now veterans. I just feel like personally for myself, the persistency with a more final expense, just life insurance based lead has worked just better for myself. Nothing against IULs, but at the end of the day, when it comes to building value, it's a bit easier to build value on, hey, if you pass away, your family needs this money versus just an IUL kind of investment type of thing.
Can you explain the hurdle, or was there a hurdle going from vet leads, I'm sorry, IULs, I apologize, to final expense or to veterans now that you're doing now? Like, did you have any struggles or issues, or was it like something that was relatively seamless for you?
It was definitely a big jump, a big hurdle because the way I would run IULs is basically read the script, just explain like, hey, here's what the IUL does, blah blah blah, kind of just hyping it up and no really building value, that sort of thing. I mean, you can try, but it's tough. So then moving on to final expense, really building the value, having to be more assumptive with the sale. It was a pretty big transition.
Can you walk somebody through like what is a veteran lead? Because I have people who literally, they're not in, said companies, we won't mention names, but like they're not in the, that IMO or that company. So they're like veterans. What is that? Can you walk somebody through like what is a veteran lead and or kind of like what makes it different than like a regular final expense lead?
Yeah, so it's funny. When I first came in the business, I heard some people were running veterans. And I was like, wait, do we like have veterans discounts or do we have special things for veterans? I like had no idea. But a veteran lead is just pretty much a final expense lead. That's just, protection, just death benefit focused, but it is a veteran. So it's just the niche. So I know you were coming out, or there's a bunch of different ones, whether it's nurses, people in the trades, truckers, all that sort of thing. Everything is just a niche. And what's good specifically with veterans is that their monthly income is typically a little bit more than someone who's just, a regular final expense lead, someone that's just on Social Security. A veteran, most of the time or a lot of the time they're disabled. So they're getting, a little bit more funding from, income wise.
Right. Do you feel like the demographic in and of themselves, I've heard from people when you talk to veterans, it has to be different in terms of like scripting, tonality. Do you feel like that's a difference, or do you think that it's relatively the same?
So script is very similar. When it comes to tonality, I mean, everyone has their own tonality. It's not like, oh, you need to sound like this person, but just the way you say it. So being more professional, straight up with them. Try to not have commission breath and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just being very straightforward with them tends to work better.
Yeah, no, 100%.